But we're going to go ahead and launch into talking about the NMFAST program. And I'm going to talk to y'all for about 35 minutes or so. And then Dan Storer from the independent platform, sorry, brain fart, is going to talk to y'all actually about putting together packages and a little bit more about the SBIR. So I'm going to briefly touch on it in my presentation here. But one of the organizations that I'm here representing today, it's called the New Mexico FAST program, which stands for Federal and State Technology Partnership Program. And so what we're going to talk about here is really into three sections. The FAST program, which is actually run out of NMSU's Arrowhead Center, but we help anybody throughout the state, so just because you're not on campus or you're not located in Las Cruces, don't worry. Talk about the SBIR and STTR programs and essentially what they're designed to do and who participates. Because again, 12 federal agencies actually participate in the program. There's an opportunity for funding for pretty much every single business out there, no matter what you're doing. Somebody's interested in it. And then what do you need to know for actually setting up and designing your proposal packages? So first off, the Arrowhead Center and FAST. So the Arrowhead Center manages what they call the Arrowhead Technology Incubator. The director is Zeddy Sloan. She's also part of the NMFAST team. And at the Arrowhead Technology Incubator, they support the entrepreneurial community. So actually, if you need assistance, if you need to find equipment, if you need to go in there and have space rented out to you, collaboration, they can help with that. And they can also help you with assist with raising capital at the ATI. And one of the interesting facts is at the Arrowhead Technology Incubator, I don't have a figure for how many businesses are involved with that, but most of them are actual virtual. So you don't need to be located in Las Cruces, and you don't need to have access to the NMSU campus to get assistance from the Arrowhead Technology Incubator. And one of the state programs, which we used to have this slide in there because one of the employees down at the Arrowhead Center was part of it, was the New Mexico Small Business Assistance Program. That's a partnership program where some of the federal labs like Los Alamos or Sandia, and also some of the research institutes that are scattered throughout the state, you can work with them for a targeted goal. The NMSBA program, let me define which we I'm talking about here. At ETV, we actually have participated in a couple rounds of the NMSBA. We are in our third year of a leverage project, which a leverage project actually allows you to come to them with an idea from a couple different small businesses, and they will pay up to $20,000 for a rural business, $10,000 for a non-rural business. Their definition of non-rural business, though, is if you're outside of Albuquerque, you're rural. So, that money is actually not, that money doesn't go to the small business. The $20,000 actually goes to researcher at one of the labs or one of the research institutions to actually work with you. I know Pam has actually gone through the program herself, and it's an extremely valuable tool. One of the best things about the NMSBA program is, since it does pay for that researcher, it pays for their time, but it's not a burden rate. You don't have to worry about paying Sandia's overhead rate, G&A rate, the fringe benefits. So if they tell you that that researcher makes 45 bucks an hour or whatever he does, it's not actually $135 an hour by the time Sandia leverages all their fees. You're getting that much time out of that researcher.
John was saying that that 20,000 is like 60,000 because
Yeah.
they cut the overhead and everything.
We've got several clients who use it, and I mean they have had way past what should be $20,000.
Oh yeah, we can't talk highly enough. Not only do we have a leverage, but as a small business, we are in the middle of a, I forget the technical term, I think it's a sole proprietor arm of their funding. But you can get stuff like consultation on design, testing on special equipment, which, the federal labs have, $5 million pieces of equipment. good luck trying to buy that yourself. Whereas if you can actually verify your system on one of those, it's just such an invaluable resource.
Dale, you might want to mention too the IP that comes out of the program. That the small business gets royalty-free rights for any IP that may be generated as a result of the effort as well.
Yeah, they're not just going to steal intellectual property. That's, again, key. And that'll be something that we echo when we talk about the SBIR program, because the government doesn't want your patent. They don't want to steal your idea. They got way too much on their plate as it is. They just want to help you bring it to market, so that a lot of the programs, they can hopefully buy it from you eventually. And we'll talk about that distinction.
So how does it resolve who owns what?
It depends on which program. Under the NMSBA program, it's a collaborative agreement, and it's only enforced if there is actually verifiable IP that will come out of it. But you get a royalty-free license, and if you actually want to patent it and go out there and sell it on market, generally it depends on what agreement you work out with the lab. But they're not going to just take it. Maybe they want a small portion of it down the road, but that's something that they work out with the labs. For the government, though, the SBIR program, they don't care. Whatever you do with your IP is your IP.
The other key part of that is Sandia may elect to patent it and absorb all the costs of the patent itself to protect it.
Yeah.
And then turn around license it, royalty-free license to it.
So if anybody that has ever gone through the patent process knows, that can actually be a really great thing, because then it's patented and you don't have to spend the $25,000 in fees and attorneys and everything else to get your patent through. So the FAST program is, as I mentioned before, is funded by the Small Business Administration, and the goal of FAST is to strengthen the technological competitiveness of small businesses. Well, those are real nice fancy words, but what does it mean? Well, FAST works with small businesses to help them in the SBIR and STTR programs so that you can actually take your innovation to a commercial market. Essentially, that's what we mean by that. And it provides a special emphasis on helping socially and economically disadvantaged firms compete in the SBIR and STTR programs. And SBIR is just their fancy way of saying SBIR, because everybody always wants to try and shorten stuff. And under the SBIR program, it does not have special set-aside funding specifically targeted towards like women-owned small businesses or service-disabled veteran-owned small businesses, but they have priority programs. So if you are one of those, they call them historically underrepresented populations. If you are one of those, they provide special, not really special funding, but you get a little bit more assistance.
So it's mainly technical assistance.
Under the SBIR program, it's really just paying for, there's 3 different phases, which I'll talk about here. Phase 1 is the feasibility. I have an idea, I need to verify that it works. And then phase 2 is you build your prototype. And phase 3, although SBIR is a 3-phase, and the STTR program is a 3-phase program, they don't provide direct funding. For the 3rd phase, essentially that 3rd phase is now you have an idea, go out there and commercialize it. However, there are special follow-on programs that you may qualify for that can provide you additional money for doing your commercialization.
How about under the FAST program? How would they help you if you fall into those categories?
Under the FAST program, we actually help small businesses go after their SBIRs. And I'll just go ahead and talk to it right now. I know it's in a later slide, but it serves purposes such as you come to us and you have an executive summary for an idea. We'll actually help you. We'll show you where to go to get things like your registrations, because most SBIR programs, generally there's probably about 5 registrations you have to go through that are federal level registrations to actually be able to access the packages and submit them. If you need help finding a specific topic area, because a lot of the programs operate under domains of science, so they'll have a targeted topic area, and that kind of gets into the grant versus contract, which I'll discuss. Yes.
Is there a fee to submit an SBIR package?
All your registrations are free. All your, there's no fee to actually access any of the registrations. There's no fee to access any of the application packages. There's no fee to upload them. At that point, though, you have to think of your fee as your time, because it can take, they like to give the metric of it takes 40 to 80 hours of development to actually get your package together. So whatever you pay yourself, times that out by your 40 to 80 hours of effort, and that's what you're in the hole at that point. But there is no actual fee. You don't ever pay a dime for doing that. And because we are funded by the SBA currently, we just found out about our year 3. Ooh, I got a job for a year. We don't actually charge for any of the services that we offer and that we give small businesses for doing things, again, like finding the specific topic area, helping you develop your compliance matrix, or actually we have developed compliance matrices that we can give somebody that kind of go through step by step. This is what this section needs, this is what people put in there. Have you done it? Have you authorized it? Have you checked it off? And we also do proposal reviews. If you have your proposal package and you go, well, I got about a week before it's due, I'm not sure if it's good, I need somebody to look it over, we actually have technical assistants that will actually look over those proposal packages and verify that you're answering the technical specifications. If you come to us, though, with about a minute to spare, like a lot of people do, when you have your submission time, it's kind of hard for us to review it, though. But we need it a few days ahead of time. But if you actually have a proposal developed that you need reviewed, that's also one of the services we offer. And just to highlight again, New Mexico FAST serves the entire state of New Mexico. So it doesn't matter where you're located at in New Mexico, but we are specifically for New Mexico small businesses going after SBIR or STTR.
So I want to go after one of those SBIR ones, and I got online and I looked, and there's something that they're looking for that I can solve.
Mm-hmm.
So I need to, in order to access FAST, I need to write an executive summary and do some drawings of my idea, or what?
That's actually just, so what we do with the executive summary is we'd like to give we have an entire timeline. I'll show you, well, that's our website, arrowheadcenter.nmsu.edu/nmfast. And it has an intake process on there where we ask you a couple questions, essentially who you are, who is your business, have you found a specific topic area, have you applied before, and then we use that information to hold an intake interview. And during the intake interview, we'll find out more about your idea, more about what you're working on, and how it aligns with that particular topic area, or at that point help you find a topic area. And during that process, we give you this entire process diagram. And the reason we ask for a 1 to 2 page executive summary is so that we can help refine that idea down to fit that specific topic area. Or I also use it to find complementary programs, because a lot of people, they'll have an innovation, they'll have an invention, and they go, well, it answers this very specific thing. But when you look at the process that they follow and how they get to their end product, a lot of those processes could actually answer some of the topic areas as well. So that's what we do with that 1 to 2 page executive summary. It's really just an introduction for us on what you do and the way you go about solving that, so we can see if there's other complementary areas. Because a lot of people don't ever think about their process that they use. So you have an invention and you go, well, I manufacture it this way, here's my end product, and everybody's interested in the end product. And it's like, well, no, let me hear about the way you actually manufacture that, because that's innovative itself. That might actually fit into some different topic areas. So that's what we ask for the 1 to 2 page executive summary. It's just a refinement. And the FAST program, because it is SBA funded, all 50 states, the District of Columbia, and U.S. territories can apply. And this has actually been updated for year 3. There's 21 winners, 16 state FAST programs, and 5 small business technology development centers. I can't really tell you what the Small Business Technology Development Center does, because I work under one of the state programs. But to apply for FAST, as a program, we have to get support from the governor. So that's why this is a statewide program, because the governor has to go, well, I think that this organization can actually do what the SBA wants. And then, again, we're run out of the NMSU's Arrowhead Center, and we perform our services throughout the entire state. And funding is generally actually supplemented also by the state of New Mexico. That's how we can do things like offer micro grants, which I'll discuss later. And as an organization, we have to reapply annually. So it's a one-year program, and we reapply annually. That's why it's such a big thing that we got our year 3. So we'll at least be able to provide services up until next September. After that, we'll see. We'll see what the year 4 looks like. And the people that work for FAST, so Zadie Sloan, who I talked about, is the director of ATI. She is actually the director of FAST as well. She lives in Las Cruces. Dana Catrone, who I mentioned earlier, she's our program coordinator. She's in Santa Fe, and she has research and technical writing expertise. Myself, I'm in Alamogordo. I work for way too many different people as well. And then Todd Hizia, who's an entrepreneurial advisor. He's in Albuquerque, and he also is a managing partner and co-founder of Catapult Inc. And the reason we have this slide in there is so you can find out who is part of FAST, but also they come from a bunch of different backgrounds. So it's not just a university professor or researcher that's going, yeah, sure, I think I know the hurdles that a small business goes through. No, most of us have come from small businesses. We know the trials, the tribulations, the heartache, the headache, the sweat, blood, tears, everything that goes into it. So we understand what it's like trying to apply for some of these programs. And then a quick highlight of some of our services. We have a monthly newsletter where we talk about upcoming solicitations, some interesting topic areas that people might want to look at. Some of the workshops, which, like the one here today, are the other workshops that we hold throughout the state. And a lot of our workshops we actually record. So not only will we stream them out online, we'll record them at the same time, which I guess I should have told people we're actually recording this. Don't worry, I cut out this portions where people talk about who they are and what they're doing. But we want to build a living library because we know, particularly for small businesses, it's a lot of times really difficult to take that 2 hours out of your day to drive over here or drive over wherever we're holding the workshop and listen to us for an hour and a half and then drive back. Because for a lot of small businesses, they live and die by those minute-to-minute revenue streams. So that's why we record them so that people can actually catch up at any time. They can listen to it. And we do workshops that are tailored and specific as well. So not only do we do workshops that are an entire overview of the SBIR program, but also we give targeted ones. Like we did one about 3 months ago. I think it was 3 months. I should remember I'm the one that gave it. For NIH, so National Institutes of Health participates in the SBIR program. And we went through what does a typical NIH package look like? You know, what are your specific registrations for NIH? What are your specific details you need? What do they review criteria? And we also had an NIH program manager actually dial in and speak to the people there and provide them one-on-one, not really counseling, but just a one-on-one time to actually talk to a cognizant program manager, talk about your idea, because they're the ones that actually provide the first line of defense for a small business that has an idea. Because the cognizant program managers are the ones making those decisions about what gets funded. They have a review panel and the reviewers say, you know, whether they recommend it or not. But essentially, at the end of the day, somebody from NSF is going through and going, yeah, I think we should fund that. And those are those people. So being able to speak to them one-on-one is a huge, huge thing. And a lot of this we covered, just the intake application, the intake interview. The one thing on here that's actually of importance that I'll describe again here in a few slides is the micro grants. So NMFAST, and this is part of our assistance that we get through the state of New Mexico, we offer up to 2 micro grants to a small business to help with proposal development. And those are up to 2 $650 micro grants. But Similar to what the NMSBA does, those microgrants don't go to the small business to find somebody. We actually have a service provider network of people that have experience doing technical writing, technical review, compliance, helping people get their DCA accounting set up. And if that's a service that you need to develop your SBIR proposal, we actually will pay that organization to work with you. Again, up to $650 times 2. So this is the NMFAST impact. As you can see, we have clients all throughout the state, workshops and partners all throughout the state, except these areas that you see, because there's about 3 cactuses in those areas and not a lot of people. So there's not a lot of services to give to where people don't live. But we cover the entirety of the state. So in summary, NMFAST interviews interested in New Mexico for-profit small businesses, assists them in identifying appropriate topic areas, provides how-to information on agency registrations and electronic proposal submission, helps guide proposal preparation, reviews proposal drafts, and offers them microgrants. One thing that's important, though, you'll see that we provide how-to, we help guide. We don't actually write your proposal for you because we can't. You know your technology and you know how it aligns with that topic area. We can give you all the tools that you need and we can help you along in the way, but when it comes to actually writing the 15 pages worth of technical stuff that somebody like NSF requires, that's all you. We can help you again. We can provide you as much information as we can. We can help review it, but for the words on paper, you got to do that. So when we talk about the SBIR and STTR programs, the SBIR and STTR missions are to support scientific excellence and technological innovation through the investment of federal research funds and critical American priorities to build a strong national economy, one small business at a time. That's their tagline. Essentially, they just want to help you get your idea to market. That's a lot easier than saying an entire paragraph of words. But their goals are to meet federal research and development needs, increase private sector commercialization of innovations, and this one is actually key because this talks about the STTR, which is the Small Business Technology Transfer. So there's a lot of universities and federal research institutions out there that have IP that is essentially just wasting away on a shelf because they can't commercialize it. There's a special, it's a companion program to the SBIR called the STTR that will help a small business actually commercialize somebody else's IP. Because a lot of universities just have stuff sitting on the shelf and they can't do anything with it. They want to get it out there. So a lot of them will just beg you to take the IP and do something with it. Of course, there will be a licensing agreement. You ain't going to just get it for free, but there's a development process for that. And then essentially just stimulate technological innovation and foster and encourage participation in innovation and entrepreneurship by socially and economically disadvantaged persons. You find this one repeated a lot because there is a big push for actually getting money or getting better money into the hands of small businesses that fall into one of those categories. Under the SBIR program, there's not specific funding set aside just for things like women-owned small businesses, but it helps. They don't provide set-asides for it, but there are certain mechanisms within that process that give you kind of a leg up on the competition. But at the same time, it still has to be innovation compelling. It still has to answer one of their topic areas. It still has to have a technological need. So that's the history of the SBIR program. We're not going to really get into it, just that the SBIR program's actually been around for quite a while, from 1982. And it's been the key catalyst for tens of thousands of small businesses for them to actually grow and for them to eventually offer a commercial product. Because that's what these programs are designed to do. They're designed to take somebody's idea that fits a specific need and help it get to a commercial market. They want you to succeed. They want you to actually go through all the, I'll say all 3 phases, the 2 funded phases and your 3rd phase of actually being able to sell your innovation. They just want small businesses to grow because it helps the innovative capital of the United States. Everybody's all, oh, America. Well, and that's how they help. They want people to get out there. They want them to get their innovation out there. They want them to succeed because, as I brought up before, every small business that succeeds, that's employment opportunities. So it just helps the entire economy, and it also helps, just the entire social network that's around that small business to succeed if that small business succeeds. But the SBIR programs support R&D and financing of cutting-edge technologies. That's why the I in SBIR stands for innovation, because it is small business innovation research. So you have to have something that is interesting and compelling, and it's kind of up to them on what the definition of interesting is. That's why every agency has an entire list of review criteria. For instance, with NSF, they have an entire list of review criteria where you enter. Essentially, the reviewer has to answer a bunch of different questions, but they break it down into 2 factors. I don't remember what those factors are. And there are 2 just very small factors. You have to excuse me, it's been a very long day. But they have 2 factors that technological merit and broader impact. So is it technologically interesting, and does it have a broader impact beyond that small business? They have, like I said, they have an entire list, and they have a bunch of review criteria. When you look at it, though, those are their 2 guiding principles. Every single one of those review criteria answers one of those questions. It is a set-aside program. It's 3.2% of the extramural research budget. Essentially, that just means the outside R&D budget for all agencies with a budget greater than $100 million per year, and that's for the SBIR program. And as you can see, it's actually grown over time. That's also key because it's not one of those programs that they continually take away from until it runs dry. They want this program to succeed, and so they keep dumping more funding into it every year. In the STTR program, fewer agencies actually participate in, and it's less percentage. It's only 0.45% of the extramural research budget. But that's because it's for agencies with a budget greater than $1 billion per year. There's only 5 federal agencies with a budget that actually meet that. So it's a smaller amount of it's a smaller pool, but it's a much smaller criteria because, again, it is you taking somebody else's technological innovation that is held by a university or a research institution, because those are the only people that can participate in the STTR besides a small business. So the differences between them, the SBIR is research and development effort primarily done by small business. So under the SBIR program, 67 to 100% of the work has to be done by small business. That means that either 0%, because of course 100 minus 100 is 0, or 33% of the work can be done by a combination of consultants, U.S. research institutes, other small businesses, or even a larger business. This is kind of key because I can tell you as a small business, we have submitted SBIR packages where we've actually worked with the university. It just so happened to be NMSU. That's where I work there. Don't cry nepotism. But that's so that we can actually work with a professor at a university. We can work with a researcher at a university who can help us make sure that that SBIR succeeds.
So kind of go over like what you did with that professor. Like, so in my idea, I would need maybe some CAD work done and stuff like that. How did you set that up?
Well, of course, each one is going to be fairly different on what the professor does. We've submitted a few of them. Most of the time, though, with us, what it is, and we rely on our employees because most of our employees have come from places like New Mexico Tech or NMSU. So they have professors they've worked with, and they have a network of professors. And they've been able to introduce us into somebody that's working on a cognizantly complementary area. Like we had one for doing, this wasn't actually under SBIR, it was under another one, but for bridge inspections. So being able to find a structural engineer that could handle things like verifying data analysis. Or for us, a lot of the times what will happen is the university professor will go, well, I'd like this idea, this is something I can work with. I'll provide, an in-kind contribution so many hours, and then they'll assign like a GA or a postdoc to actually do the brunt of the work, because it's a lot cheaper to have a GA or a postdoc actually work on the project than it is to try and get a university faculty, because most of them are, very high six-figure salaries. You don't want to have to pay that, but you pay a GA, and then the the faculty researcher will actually oversee that GA. And so that's how you get that tie-in a lot of times with the university, is they provide the oversight, they provide the knowledge, they actually have a body that's working in that field of science, whether it's a postdoc or whether it's just a master's level student that has some know-how and some knowledge. And it's about being able to use their equipment. So for some of ours, like a particular battery chemistry one, we would be able to use the university's equipment and what they have set up, rather than us having to buy like $100,000 spectrometers, because we can't buy that. But we could use the universities at that point. So that's why being able to partner with a university or like one of the research institutions is kind of key, because again, just like the NMSBA program, they got a lot of tools and equipment at their disposal that would just be outrageous for you to try and purchase on your own. So for us as a small business, that's what we've done. But for FAST, we can actually help introduce you to professors and research faculty at not only MSU, but UNM, New Mexico Tech, any of the other universities we work with that may be able to help you in your SBIR proposal.
Is there a formal definition for your research institution?
It's actually not our definition. The government has a very strict guideline on what they consider a research institution. It's about 3 pages long. But there's an actual list. So anybody like the federal labs like Sandia or Los Alamos, a university that does, that is research aligned, and they have a weird definition for that. Some NGOs that are actually doing research. Essentially, it is an organization that is set up to primarily serve for research and development rather than for ultimately selling an end product. That's kind of what you can consider, but they do have a very specific guideline for what they consider a research institution. And the SBIR.gov is the SBA's SBIR website. It has guidance on there about what an actual research institution is and what that definition is according to them. And then under the SBIR, formal intellectual property agreements aren't required because you may just be a small business working by yourself. The STTR is a cooperative research and development effort because, again, it's you taking that technology that's sitting on somebody's shelf and commercializing it. A minimum of 40% of the work is done by the small business. A minimum of 30% of the work is done by U.S. Research Institute, like NMSU or Sandia. And anybody that's a math major can tell that's 30% that's left over to be split up however it needs to be. And that one does require a formal intellectual property agreement. You may not have to have it fully executed and in place at submission, but before they'll actually release funds to you, whoever the federal agency is, you have to have that agreement in place, because they don't want to give money to you to develop it and all of a sudden you have a falling out with whoever owns that IP and they tell you to go to hell, you can't work on their stuff anymore, because then that money just disappears from the government. And that's why 30% can be done by consultants, because 40 plus 30 is 70. You got to get to 100 somehow. But these are the relative SBIR amounts in the fiscal year 2015. So these are the agencies that actually participate. Health and Human Services, which is NIH, National Institutes of Health, Department of Defense, National Science Foundation, NASA, and DOE. And the reason that all of these are called out, these 5, is because they have the largest budgets. For anybody that's paying attention, those are also the 5 that are participate in the STTR, because again, they have largest budgets. And these are kind of the also-rans. They take this tiny, tiny, tiny brown slice of pie, but it's USDA, Department of DHS, Department of Homeland Security. Commerce actually operates under NOAA and NIST. NOAA is National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration. NIST is the science and tooling. Transport, education, and the EPA also have SBIR topics. So those are the participating agencies. You will see a couple stars here, and that's because these agencies act more like a contracting agency than a granting agency. And people will go, what's the difference? Well, these are the differences. So under a grant is a more flexible instrument to provide funds to support a public purpose. A contract is a binding agreement. So grants generally are for, hey, we want to know what people are doing in geological sciences. The contracts are for a very specific purpose and a very specific problem. So under the contracts, you have like Department of Defense and NASA. They have a very specific problem. Department of Defense goes, well, you get 200 nautical miles off the ship, radar fails. Why does it fail? They need to know that. So they will actually have a SBIR topic area that wants to answer that question. Whereas somebody like NSF goes, what are people doing in telemetry? They just want to know an overall, because the contracting agencies, they want to buy a product. And that's why they're so big on the contracts, and that's why their technology topic areas are so focused, because they have a problem that they need solved. Whereas a granting agency is like, yeah, we just want to know what people are doing. Again, it's a three-phase program. Phase one is really the feasibility. So you have an idea. Is the idea workable? A lot of times your phase one deliverable is going to be a report. Is it feasible? Is it not feasible? And then you have the follow-on, the phase two. That's where you actually take your feasibility study and you go, well, now I know it works. Let me build something that's a prototype. And then, the phase three is your actual commercialization. For the contracting agencies, it can provide a sole source justification to pursue commercialization objectives. So that means that they've already put money into the idea. They want to buy a product. They can validate that this person has a product that answers all my needs. I can sole source this. I don't have to actually open it up for competition for other businesses to sell me a product. That's why for agencies like DoD and NASA, that's so important.
That's a very powerful tool. When I was on the other side as a program manager, we actually tracked from phase one all the way through phase three, because phase one was competed. We don't have to, as Dell said, go out and compete to actually buy the hardware. So if you can team with that program manager who eventually wants to buy the results of that hardware or software, it's a very powerful contracting tool in the relationship.
So source, basically what you're saying is you're developing it, and at the very end, they're not going to go look for anybody else. They're just going to buy it from you.
That's right. If you're successful through the...
Because like for DoD, any opportunity they have out there that's not related to this, if you look on, like for just going to FBO.gov, they will say, well, we want to buy this platform. They can know exactly what platform they want to buy. Like they want to buy a DJI Phantom 2. They cannot directly contact DJI or go on DJI's website and order one. They have to open it up to everybody that can either provide that exact platform or a platform that meets those specifications and can provide them a price point. Then who knows who you're actually competing against. Whereas with sole source, they go, nope, we've already devoted money to this. We know it fits it answers my problem. I know that it's valid. I know it's good. They can buy directly from that person, and you're not competing against anybody else. So that's why it's definitely extremely valuable for a small business that has worked with a cognizant program manager. And then under the SBIR and STTR programs, so your data is protected for not less than 4 years from delivery of the last deliverable under the phase 1, 2, it should be taken out, the phase 1 or 2 award. And what that means for your data rights is it's not actually your intellectual property. That just means that they can publish the data that came from that, but they will protect it for 4 years. Definitely get your patent during that time. But it doesn't mean that your technology is just open for anybody to take at that point. It's just saying, well, we have to actually, because it's under the federal dollars at that point, we have to release information about it.
Okay, so I want to do this, I want to go for one of these SBIR awards. And so what you're saying with that is I can go ahead and drop the idea and do the executive summary, go talk to New Mexico Fast, they can help me flush it out technically so that I'm fitting the guidelines, the paperwork guidelines. And I'm protected from somebody stealing that idea because it's a fairly simple idea.
Yeah. This is just saying, so upon culmination of either your phase 1 or phase 2, you have a window from your final delivery up to 4 years where they have to publish information about it. And it's not actually them publishing the technical drawings or anything. It's basically just saying, hey, somebody had this idea, we paid them to do it. So they don't actually release like, oh, well, here's the technical drawings the person did for this. Here's, it acts in such a way under, these laboratory conditions. It's essentially just data on that they provided funding for something. But for your actual intellectual property rights, again, the government's not interested in it. For the intellectual property rights, you retain all property rights. It's just the government has a license to be able to purchase that from you at some point in the future. And that's all that's actually outside of the data rights, but it falls along with that. I'm pretty sure it falls along in that same 4-year period where they have a exclusive license to be able to actually use the technology that comes from the SBIR. But again, they're not just going to take it. A lot of times they're just going to buy it. So what are the advantages of SBIR funding? So it's the government's venture capital program. Essentially, it's a way for the government to inject money into a small business without having to go through a big, long, gigantic process. Although anybody that's been through a SBIR process knows that that's a long, gigantic process anyways. It's risk-free dollars. There's no black marks for up to a 75% failure rate. So what that means is you can fail on your phase 1 or your phase 2 up to 75% of the time, and the government's not going to go, yeah, we're not going to provide you any more money because you keep failing. Eventually, they want you to come up with something that works. That's why they have 75%. But if your phase 1 fails right out of the gate, they're not going to hold it against you if you actually go for another phase 1 or if you go for a phase 2. They're not going to say, well, no, you failed with us once. You're not going to ever get money from us again. It's no equity position. The government doesn't take any sort of equity within your company. The company retains full data rights, so that's your, and they won't disclose data for at least 4 years. So you'll always retain the rights. It's just at some point they have to publish data about what they did. And then it's again, priority position for sole source sales to government from organizations like DoD or NASA. And this is the structure of it. So the phase 1 is the feasibility study. Generally, a phase 1 is between 100K to 225K over 6 to 12 months. And it's got about a 15% success rate of submission. So what that means is about 15% of the proposals that come to them get funded because they open it up to give $125,000 to people. You can bet that they get a lot of proposals that come in. The phase 2 is the full research and scale prototype. Generally, they're anywhere from $500,000 to $1 million over 24 months. Some of them can actually go above that. Some of the funding agencies, I believe, such as DOE, can actually provide up to $2 million. And there's about a 45% success rate of submission. The reason that's so much higher than that one is you have to have a phase 2, or you have to have a phase 1 to actually get a phase 2, so they know the technology works. So that's why your success rate is a little bit lower, or a little bit higher. And then the phase 3 is a commercialization. And it's non-SBIR funding, but there is actually external funding. Different organizations, again, such as like DOE or NSF, have a companion follow-in funding that you may be able to qualify for. It's just technically there is no phase 3 SBIR dollar that it will ever be awarded. That's the website I mentioned, SBIR.gov. That's actually where you go to find your topic areas, to find out what sorts of registrations you need, to find out what opportunities are open, or again, just come to our website. We actually reproduce a lot of this information and will help guide you through this process. And then this is your typical proposal process. So they have a solicitation for topics, you submit, they evaluate, and you get an award. The big thing though is applications may be submitted to different agencies for similar work. So just because you have a phase 1 that went to USDA doesn't mean you can't have a phase 1 for something similar that goes to NSF. There has to be a level of difference though. And sometimes it's minute, sometimes it's great, but it can't be a carbon copy of the same exact proposal. And that's why awards may not be accepted from different agencies for duplicative projects. If you do accept it, they will find out about that, and then you get a happy knock on your door from a government auditor. You don't want that. And so real quick about some things for a proposal package. For all of the agencies that have participated in the SBIR and STTR programs, they have a proposal package that will be due. Some of them, it can be anywhere from 15 pages. Some of them, it can be anywhere from 4 different volumes that are up to a total of about 30 pages. So some of them, it can actually be a lot of writing, but there's particular guidance, and that's why at FAST we've developed compliance matrices to actually take you through those sections and talk to you about what those sections are and what you need for those. But some of the critical steps, so identify your topic fit, make contact with the agency representative identified in the solicitation. So a lot of solicitations will say, this is the cognizant program officer for this program, and provide their contact information. If you can't find that, you can come to us and we can help put you in contact with a program officer from USDA, NSF, whoever, because we developed those relationships. Complete your registrations as soon as possible. This one can't be stated enough, because you don't want to give yourself not enough time for your registration to go through. You don't want to do all the work and then go, well, this is doing 30 minutes. I need to try and get my dones now. That ain't going to happen. And then you did all that work for nothing. Seek proposal development support. Let us know about your target topic and solicitation so we can actually help you. Again, we can't help you put the words on paper, but we can provide you tools like compliance matrices, templates, that outreach with that cognizant program manager. Request a micro grant. Again, we give up to 2 micro grants of $650 for proposal development assistance. And build a strong understanding of the evaluation criteria. This one actually is one of the most important things in this chart, even though it's at the bottom, because you can write the greatest proposal package in the world, but if you don't write it around their evaluation criteria, you're not going to get funded, because they have certain criteria they look for. And everybody's package actually will include at the end what that evaluation criteria is, how they do the review, and what their review, kind of their goals for review are, and what their most important things are. Again, for somebody like NSF, it's technological merit and broader impact. I remembered it this time. But those are their 2 main guidances. Everything that they do is wrapped around those 2 focuses. So if you don't have an idea that has technological merit or has broader impact, don't go to NSF, because they won't fund you. But that's why you need to look at those evaluation criteria and understand them. And if you can't understand them, again, come see us. You cannot ask a question that we haven't heard before. Probably. Oh, let me backtrack on that. I'm sure you can ask a question that we haven't heard before, or we're not going to stick you out at the door and go, oh, I don't know this, find somebody else. That's why we're here to help you. And again, all of our services are free. And create your compliance matrix. We're developing compliance matrices for each agency, so we can actually provide assistance with that. And just based on the requirements of solicitation. So that's essentially that's your outline. What do you need to put in what section? What information is important? What do you have to make sure is covered? Start to draft your proposal early. We're also developing templates for each agency, but because it can be a lot of writing, you don't want to have to sit there and in one night try and write 15 pages worth of documentation, because you will fall asleep and then you're not going to write it that much. Build a strong team. Identify your principal investigator. And if you can, secure letters of support from major primes or end users. So letters of support from people that will actually eventually use it. If you have an idea that somebody like Raytheon might be interested in, and you can get a letter from Raytheon saying, yeah, we think this should be funded because we see a need for this in the future, that can go so well for you that it can't be underscored enough. If you have a large business that will eventually use your technology and you get a letter of support from them, that instantly raises the value of your proposal to the funding agency, because they go, well, we only want to fund stuff that will have a commercial impact, because that's one of the hidden things in the SBIR proposal, is they want this to eventually be able to be commercialized. Where if you have somebody that will actually buy that from you at the end of your phase 2, when you're moving towards your phase 3, and you have a letter of support to the proposing agency, that's just a vote of confidence in your innovation. That's a vote of confidence in the work you're going to do, because they know it's going to go somewhere. Because again, you haven't, I don't have SBIR on here. I don't know what I'm pointing at. But there's a focus on innovation, because the I in SBIR is for innovation. So articulate how you're going to achieve the goals and have a logical commercialization plan. It's funny because a lot of the agencies actually use that word logical. They don't want you to come to them and say, well, I'm going to do this and my budget requires a $25,000 laptop. They're going to go, what kind of laptop are you buying? Because that's just not logical. So make sure everything in your proposal is logical, from your schedule, your request for deliverables, the equipment that's necessary, the people that are going to be on it. It needs to follow that logical progression, because you're talking to the reviewers at that point. You're talking to people a lot of times that know companion technologies that are out there, and they want to know what, they know already some systems that you could be competing against, so they know what the logics are behind it. And if you can, get reviews of your draft. Again, we can review your draft. We just can't review it if you give us 5 minutes before it's due. Give us a couple of days at least. We ask for a week. However, having worked not only in this position for doing proposal development, but also my last job, I worked for a university out in California, and I probably did somewhere between 50 and 80 proposal packages to under every idea of a program you could think of, and every funding agency and even state level. Review that draft, and I know that a lot of times you're going to get it just right at the deadline, which is fine, but you don't give yourself time to review and to actually look it over and make sure that you answered and didn't miss anything. Because the big thing with the SBIRs is if you miss a section and you don't have it filled out, they will return it to you without review. A lot of them have very specific formatting requirements, where if you don't have it formatted in a very specific way, or you go over a page count, if they say it's a 15-page technical proposal and you give them 16 pages, do you know what happens with that? They immediately return it to you and they will not look at it. And then you spent all that time and you wasted that time. So make sure you're following those criteria. And, oh, Mindy left. But to her point about the required registrations for your agency, and this is why it's important, again, to make sure that your email address is on there, because I'll send these out. But this talks about the different registrations you need for the different agencies. This one only has the 5 big ones that participate in the STTR, but the other ones have that too, and I have companion information on that I can give to everybody. And I've already really gone over the micro grants, but some of the things they pay for are things like market research, commercialization plan assistance, external expert technical advisor, technical writing assistance. If you need help finding research partners, counseling on patent and technology licensing. So these are some of the things that people have used that $650 micro grant for. So that's why we don't really care what you're using it for, as long as it's in the purpose of your proposal development. And we have a very wide network. So again, you don't have to go, well, I need somebody to help me do technical writing. I got to find a technical writer. No. We got technical writers. We'll match you with somebody. Just let us know you need that assistance. And that's because it's a negotiated contract and rate between the contractor and Arrowhead Center. And again, we pay the contractor directly. You don't have to worry about trying to cut a check for somebody. That's all on us. And so I can give a couple minutes for Q&A, but and then Dan Sturr is actually going to talk more in depth about proposal development here. Alrighty, Dan, we turned it over to you if you want to go ahead and get started there.
Sure, I can talk. Do you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you just fine.
Perfect. All right. So one of the things somebody was just talking about, these the timing of these grants, and I put together this chart a while ago that, you know, because one of the things you got to keep in mind about any topics that you're looking at, or any grants that you're looking at, is that it is a long-term strategy. I mean, you write a phase one, you submit it like you were just saying, Dale. You wait 6 months, you perform, you know, for 6 months on that grant, you write the phase two. So really what you're trying to look at is you're looking at technologies that's 3 or 4 years out. You know, so you have to have, you can't really say, well, what would be cool 6 months from now? You have to sort of be thinking, what would be cool 3 years from now? And sort of think about it in that terms. So I just wanted to hit that while we were here. Let me go back to sort of not rehash some of the stuff you did, Dale, but let me start here. Let's go, you know, Dale sort of talked a little bit about the award, the probability award, phase one, phase two. You know, 15%, you know, basically 1 out of 6 proposals getting awarded, you know, that might not sound like a very high amount to somebody, you know, so you're putting, you know, 80 hours of work into putting together a proposal that only has a 15% probability of succeeding. But, you know, that 15%, I'm not sure how many people in the room have actually, you know, tried to go get venture capital, tried to get money from other sources, but a 15% chance is actually pretty high. And that's overall. Some of the people I work with at NSF, some program managers I work with there, they usually say, you know, if you follow the rules, if you put together a reasonable proposal, just, you know, that your odds go up to a third right off the bat. So, you know, they get a lot of junk, what I would call junk proposal that's part of that, proposals that are part of that number. And so keep that in mind. The phase two, it's almost 50% chance of getting, you know, up to $1 million. You know, it has to be a long-term idea, you know, strategy for your business, but that's the key. Some of the success stories that are out there for SBIR, you know, people always hold up Qualcomm. That's Qualcomm. Fundamentally, you know, Dell was talking about these SBIR mills, and really that's what Qualcomm started off doing. And if you ever look at Qualcomm's financial statements, they're really interesting because it's all licensing revenue. So it's all technology that they developed, well, years ago. The foundation of what they developed were through SBIRs with the DoD. So that was other people. 23andMe is a recent company that's got a lot of SBIR money, get their technology out there on the genetic testing. So there's a lot of success out there. So I want to talk about the 4 things I think are key about writing a decent proposal. Now, you got to keep in mind, I think I probably wrote 5 proposals or 6 proposals before we got funded. It was actually interesting. You know, I do work on some of these. I'm one of the resources for New Mexico FAST for reviewing some different proposals. And back in the old days in Arizona, we were working with some different consultants that help us review and write proposals. And as soon as we stopped, you know, as soon as we got lost the training wheels of those reviewers, is when we actually started winning. So they probably helped us with the first 4 or 5 proposals, and then after that we started winning. And now it's we're probably winning at Inexol, that company that I've been doing most of my work with. We win probably 50% of the proposals we put out there, but we're very targeted in what we're doing. So by the right topic, I mean, we're picking topics, or we're responding to topics that are very strategic to our company, to that, to the software development, e-learning, simulation type company. So so keep that in mind when you're thinking about what you're responding to, making sure that that's a significant strategic fit for your company is what's important. But also keep in mind too that many of these agencies have topics that overlap. So there might be some piece of your technology that is a piece of software or a piece of hardware. For instance, medical devices, there's just so many topics out there right now for that. NSF has specific topics on medical devices. NIH and DoD have big data, because a lot of this is software driven. Question, as far as, how do we collect this health information? What do we do with it? How do we make it smarter? There's like all these topics that if you start looking at what your innovation is and breaking it down into pieces, you can end up with a lot of different SBIRs that support the actual product, but ultimately, it needs to be a topic, and you need to be answering the question, what problem are you solving? What problem is your technology solving? So that's the topic. And one other thing is SBIR.gov, as Dell was pointing out, is a key resource. I mean, there's a lot of training involved in there now too, different modules that you can take and get some of the basic information. But one of the keys that are out there is they centralized all the past awards. So finding awards around your topic area. So if you're doing something on algae, you can go put an algae in looking at past awardees and see what agencies have actually funded research around algae or research around, a certain medical device or whatever. You can be very specific about that, but what it's doing is it's actually looking at what's been awarded, then you can see who's been funded after that. A lot of times for different clients that I work with, that's a starting place for me to figure out who is the leading edge of that data, of that in that field of that topic or that field of study. Who should I be talking to? If I need to get an expert involved, who should I find and how can I find them? So picking the right topic for your company is key. Dell hit on this a little bit, but I think it's much more important than that we really emphasize this, is that partnering for SBIR companies is key. Basically, as an SBIR company, we're a new company, generally speaking. We might have leadership that has a lot of expertise, but the company itself usually doesn't have much of a track record. So what we're doing is we're borrowing credibility from partners. We're borrowing credibility from, potential customers, all those things. So when I start thinking about partners and people I would mention in a proposal or get letters of support from that Dell was talking about, basically you got 4 levels that I look at. And the highest level is this idea of a customer. So you're talking to a Raytheon if you have something that's appropriate for them, or you're talking to Mayo Clinic if you have something for them, or Medtronics, whoever it may be. But if you can get a letter of support from them, the weakest being, hey, this is a good idea and these are decent people, to the strongest being, this is a conditional order. If you do what you say you're going to do in the grant and your device performs like it, like you expect it to perform, we anticipate ordering, 10,000 units, those type of things. Those are the strongest letters, especially for National Science Foundation, NIH to a certain extent. Those are the strong. National Science Foundation, you really have to have a strong commercialization plan, and that's how you show that there is really need out there. So that gives you the market credibility. Then the other ones are foundations, specific to the problem. So like I was helping a client with the Alzheimer's device. So something that helped actually treat and reverse Alzheimer's. And, he has a letter from the foundation, but he also had funding from a foundation from about $500,000. And that, reading the reviewers' comments, that carried a lot of weight with them, that the Alzheimer's Foundation that they had collected that money from had a lot of credibility, and that they're like going, well, if they're funding them, then NIH reviewers looked at it as that's pretty positive characteristic. The next one, the next level down is investors. So basically what you've done as a business, you've gone out and convinced investors that, to either invest in your company, invest in your idea, get letters of support. And those are what you can get from Arrowhead Center. Those kind of connections are really important. And sort of the last level of support, or the idea credibility, is from researchers, people that are really well known in the industry, especially in that, basically names that reviewers would look at and say, okay, that guy has a lot of credibility and he thinks it's a good idea. Those are, those kind of partnerships, pulling those people in as consultants or some kind of a role in the project are pretty important. I have this story where I actually wrote a proposal for our company. We're doing some stuff around environmental sensors, and there's at Arizona State University, we have a Nobel laureate who has been there for about 5 years now, and I was actually talking to him, and he liked the idea so much that he gave us a letter of support, said he'd serve on our advisory board, did all these things for that project, and didn't even want to be compensated. So there's people out there, and that add a lot of credibility, or can add a lot of credibility to your proposal. So you've got to keep those resources in mind. How can you grab more credibility? So the other thing the number one reasons grants don't get funded, proposals don't get funded. This is the last year's SBIR conference. Their presenter was making this point, and it was because small businesses have a tendency of over-promising, that we think we can do, well, in my case, I know I can do more than on, $100,000 than somebody in the government thinks is possible. I'm sure that that's the case with most small companies, is we know how to get stuff done on a shoestring. We know how to do things efficiently. But reviewers look at it and say, well, they're trying to do too much. They can't be successful if they're doing that much. So you have to keep the scope of what you're doing reasonable. That was when we started winning, the way we started winning our proposals, when I first started this, was we actually started simplifying them. We took a proposal and divided it into 2 or 3 pieces. And that was the key for us. So it's sort of weird, that, okay, you want us to do less. You're not going to fund us because we're saying we're going to do too much. Okay, we can do less. What you actually do with the money, how far you take that research is up to you. The work plan, specific aims, and supporting tasks need to be really well defined. The who, what, where, when, how for each task, who's going to do it, why is it important to the project, all those things is, as part of that work plan, is really important. The budget is also important. Dell talked about STTRs compared to SBIRs. This morning, as you guys were earlier in the presentation, I was working on a budget with the University of Arkansas, STTR, that one of their scientists is working on. And one of the problems with working with Research Institute is the Research Institute tax that's out there. Like the University of Arkansas actually has a tax or basically indirect rate of 49% on top of a benefits rate of 30%. So it just sucks up the whole budget really quick, and you don't end up with that many hours. So one of the things to keep in mind is, if you're looking at working with researchers, is, how do you move as much of that budget into the small company as possible, or as logical? So those are the kind of strategies you need to look at. I would recommend early on a company looking at the budgets by looking at time budget by task and making sure that what you're proposing is reasonable. You know, once I divide this work plan out into task, does it make sense that I can get this task done in 10 hours that I have budgeted for it? Those type of things. So those are things to think about. And probably the fourth thing is being persistent. There's no quitting. I mean, so in the country here, there's this person called named Sharon Ballard, and she does writing workshops all over the country. Usually they're about 2-day writing workshops, and her rule of thumb is that you can't quit or whine until you have 10 proposals that have been submitted and rejected. And she's won about 35 as her own company. She was out of San Diego. And as her own company, a small engineering company that did a lot of stuff on artificial intelligence for the DoD, she won about 35 of these SBIR phase 1s and phase 2 early on in the program. So this is in the 80s and 90s. So she, and that's about how many it took before they started winning proposals. So that was, now the hard part for me is whenever I get reviews back, especially if they're critical, it takes me a couple days to get around to actually opening those reviews and looking at them and reading them, because I hate the criticism. But those reviews really give you your roadmap of how to make your proposal better for the next middle cycle, or whether to do it at all. But almost in all cases, you read it and you say, okay, I can adjust that, I can adjust that. And then when you do a resubmittal, you get an extra page to basically say that it's a resubmittal, and I use that page to specifically say, this is what this reviewer, they said that we were weak on this, and this is how we adjusted that. And and it gives you a real opportunity to right up front say, this is what the previous reviewer said, and this is how we fixed it, and this is what they liked about it. So it's a pretty powerful page that you can have. But for NIH, it's really interesting that it's almost double. So the ones that have been resubmitted have almost double the acceptance rate. So that's something to think about. All right. So here's that. Keep in mind this is a long-term strategy. There's that. So some of the stuff that Dell talked about is sort of the same thing I'm going to go through here. So I'll probably go through it pretty quick, because the pre-writing checklist. So when I'm working with a client, in an ideal world, I start about 8 weeks before a proposal is due. And especially a new client, somebody that hasn't done a proposal as a company themselves, because the registration can take a long time. So 8 weeks, you could probably, in Arizona, in 8 weeks, you could actually get a company set up and get all these registrations done in 8 weeks, but it would be pretty tight. Technical research you need to do, look at the prior awards of previous topics. So the prior awards are out there on SBIR.gov, and every time somebody tells me that they have some new idea that nobody's ever thought of, or looking in this area, I don't know, 95% of the time or more, I can go to SBIR.gov, type in a couple of keywords and say, oh, so it's like this. And they're like, oh, yeah, I guess it's a little bit like that. So make sure you know what's happening out there. Make sure you know what's state of the art. Reach out, like Dell said, reach out to the technical points of contact for each agency. That's key. It's key to build those relationships, especially with the DoD. DoD is very unique in that regard. You have to have relationships and understand who that customer is. The DoD is really the customer, as opposed to NIH or NSF, where they're just looking for interesting, research to be done that could be commercialized. DoD wants an actual product out of the end of it. Look at the topic references. A lot of topics, especially DoD, they'll put out references. Look at the topic author. What is the topic author published, and this used to be a little bit easier to do back in the olden days with DoD. It's changed in the last couple of years. It used to, the topic author would be listed. Now you're being a little bit more anonymous, but make sure you look at that stuff. Look at what the agency has researched. What have they paid for in the past, whether it's SBIR or other research. Go to the journals. That's where you find what's happening state of the art in that area. That's where a lot of times I'll find consultants that I want to use, or or potential partners if I find certain large companies that aren't available, or SBIR money isn't available to them, but it might be something they want to chase down. That's where I find those contacts. In market research, you got to figure out, is it a commercializable idea? Does it make sense to chase this down? Early on, so this is phase 1 stuff. I'm asking you to, in phase 1, before you write your proposal, to go out and look at potential commercialization partners. That's really what I would recommend a client go do. And then you sort of need to look at the dream outcome of this market research. Is like the idea of a conditional order or investment, so anything like that. If you can do that in phase 1, you're way ahead of the game. Definitely in phase 2, those things have to be in place if you're going to win a phase 2 proposal. Concept write-up is, to me, and Dell was talking about the executive summary they use for New Mexico FAST. Where we start the writing process is usually this idea of a concept write-up. It's usually 200, 400 words. It's hard to be that concise, but the key is getting your idea as concise as possible that you can send to a program manager at one of these agencies and get that feedback. Most of them are willing to give feedback, but if you sent them, a 2-page write-up, chances are they're not going to give it. You're not going to get very good feedback. So you need to be really concise of what's important. That's especially true with NIH, because in NIH, the proposal itself in the phase 1, you only have 7 pages to begin with. So you need to get used to being very concise. But that's sort of the foundation. That sort of becomes your elevator pitch. Think about it as an elevator pitch size of a narrative. So that's usually the first thing we do, is we start small, and then from there we build, put the other words around it. The different, so DoD, you have 20 pages. These are the main components of the different agencies. Well, these 3 agencies have. And there's a lot of overlap the way things work. But every one of them is unique. One of the things I haven't mentioned, and that I usually say almost on every slide, and I forgot that I do this, is read the instructions. Even if somebody like me, puts together a matrix, or I put together all the key components for every section that's required, those change from time to time, or from solicitation to solicitation for each agency. So every time, and I've been burned on this a few times, just read the instructions every time you do a proposal. So every time I do a NIH cycle, even though I'm working on 6 different proposals right now for NIH, I reread the instructions at the beginning of this cycle. So please read the instructions every time. So here's an example of what I do for work plans. And the key is you're a small company, and a lot of times I always laugh, and most of the things that I write for myself for the Inexol company that I've worked for, it's, the leaders for it, we're not a big company, so generally my name's on every one of those things. So but you have to have a work plan. You have to be able to push things off on other people if you can. Otherwise, you need to have strong reviewers. that can help you look at that kind of thing. And this is a sample of a weekly activity sample. So this is what I would work with my clients and say, this is what our 8-week activity sample looks like. This is what we're going to do the next 8 weeks and how the review cycle is going to work. All right, and I think the last thing I'm going to talk about is just the upcoming grant cycles, grant opportunities. So NIH is September 5th is the next due date, which isn't very far away. I would say that's January 5th for NIH is really the next one. USDA coming up October 5th. Department of Energy, October 16th. NSF, their actual solicitation isn't out yet, but it's usually due early December is usually where they come out. DOD is fall, but it's usually like January-ish is when that's actually due. Ed, which is, Department of Education is really important. Interesting because there's a lot of education things that are going on, especially around STEM education and things like that, that it's one of those agencies that I'm always surprised at the topics that are available in them or what they're interested in looking at. So they're pretty powerful to look at. NASA is January. So those are the ones that are coming up soon. That'll be the most beneficial. The reason that we were wanting to do this outreach at Farmington in New Mexico right now was the USDA opportunity that's coming up October 5th. USDA has this one section called for rural development that I'm sure we'll talk about in the breakout sessions a little bit, but it gives a lot of flexibility. They're really looking at rural areas, how can we make, life a little bit better for everybody in these rural areas, whether connecting them to technology, how do we make more opportunities, economic opportunities out there. So USDA is pretty unique in that regard, and they have a reasonable amount of money, but also there's a lot of agricultural funding involved in there, some different environmental funding that is also pretty key in that USDA topic. So that I think is a really appropriate agency for rural areas. And I think you're going to make this stuff available, right, Dell, to everybody, so you can read about me later.
Yes, I am, Dan.
All right, but I work in some writing workshops. We do these writing workshops that are around the country, quite a bit, but they're usually 2-day workshops. So the training that goes into this, or the way you write your proposals and the thought you have an opportunity to put behind is a real investment. I mean, Dell talked about, this free money comes at a pretty high cost as far as people's efforts, people in the organization, partners that you're working with. That's the other interesting thing is if you can get a Raytheon, if you're talking about that, or a Honeywell or a Medtronic or somebody to dedicate the resources to, help you with your proposal a little bit, that in itself really speaks volumes about how important your idea is to everybody. One of the things I heard earlier that there was somebody that was talking about their car washing business and, trying to find funding, to advance that. And, and some people would look at the SBIR world and say, well, it doesn't really fit in that. And I look at it and say, there is so much opportunity because if you innovate around, some component of that car washing business, if you figure out a better way to do something, if you figure out a better chemical or compound to put on headlights so they don't fade in our Arizona sun, or whatever it is, there's a lot of pieces around that where you could do some innovation and some research and actually get funding and end up with a product that's unique to your business. So everybody, I always encourage people to try to keep that in mind, is that, break down your business by, those activities you do. What can you do what could you innovate in that activity to make that job easier, more profitable, and potentially have a product out the end of it that you can sell to other people. So those are the, what I'd like have people have as takeaways on that.
So just to introduce myself, I'm the Executive Director of the Native American Intellectual Property Enterprise Council. I've been with NAPEC since 2010, which is basically since it was founded. I worked in New Mexico for 5 years. I'm currently in Atlanta, Georgia. And I was the CEO of the Alan Hauser Company, which was the renowned Apache artist, and he was also the founding faculty member of IAIA. And that was really where a lot of my interest in both protecting his work and getting involved in a lot of different Native American arts and crafts and artists. Really, that's where it began. And then when I moved back to Atlanta, I continued my work with NAPEC. I'm also at the same time the founder of 2 startups which are currently active. One is a small business selling, which my daughter-in-law started, selling aromatherapy products for babies, so sleep mist and baby oil and all that sort of thing. And I also have a technology startup, which is a small business app to help businesses get their customers to refer them so that they can get new customers. I lived in the United States for nearly 25 years. As you can hear, I'm from Europe. I'm from England. And I typically had a history in brand management and business management. The NAPEC itself is a non-profit organization. We're supported by donations, small grants, contracts, which we've talked about a little bit about. We actually have some government contracts from the Bureau of Indian Affairs, Office of Economic Development. And our purpose is to help support the growth of innovation amongst Native American people. We focus solely on intellectual property, and we try to provide assistance in information and education. I travel 5 or 6 times a year and do workshops like this, as do my colleagues. Talking about the protection of IP rights, we get involved in advocacy as well with the United States Patent and Trade Office. We're currently working on formalizing an agreement we have with them to allow Native American inventors to actually apply for their patents in their native language, in addition to English, but so that there is always also a native language version of the patent application. And we also get involved in market and business feasibility, development, management, and I've asterisked that because, as I said, we're supported by donations, small contracts and grants. At the moment, we're working under one specific grant, which I'll talk about in a little bit. We were founded by a Chippewa inventor who's called David Petit, and if any of you have got cell phones or if any of you have got any smart appliances in your home, David was the one who invented the technology behind what's called small-scale Wi-Fi, which allows, for instance, things like the I've fallen and I can't get up emergency button. The technology behind that was David's. And he's generated over $70 million in licensing revenues for the various companies he's worked for. He retired around 2010, 2012 and started this organization, which I joined with him. We have a network of lawyers, business development experts, etc. And one of the things, the grant that I was talking about, or the contract that I was talking about, is actually setting up a small resource hub in the New Mexico, Arizona region, and also in the Pacific Northwest in Washington State, a little bit of Oregon and Montana, to actually be a first point of contact for entrepreneurs and inventors. So we're putting out solicitations, as it were, to various organizations in those 2 regions so that we can be the point of contact for Native American inventors as we are now. We receive about 7 or 8 phone calls or inquiries a month from Native American inventors, looking for assistance or information. And the new project we're working on is to formalize that. So we'll have an online portal that people can get onto, tell us about where they are in the stages of their invention, and then we'll be talking to, in turn, to people like Dell and to people like the SBIR folks or whoever it might be, and the SCORE network as mentors. So that's what we do. We help breathe life into new ideas, hopefully, and to grow invention and innovation in Indian country. So why is IP important? Well, this is a study done by Georgia State University back in 2008, where David asked Georgia State business grads to look into what would be the value of the IP, both currently protected by the U.S. Patent and Trade Office there, the USPTO, and what would be the value of the intellectual property that was created on native land or in Indian country or just in the United States or North America as it used to be called, that has been lost because it wasn't protected for whatever reason. And those are the lists, everything from tomatoes or tomatoes to root beer and beef jerky and cornmeal, and not to mention lacrosse and all of those sorts of things. So protecting your intellectual property is an important part of the very early stages of development of any sort of innovation or any sort of business idea, to make sure that you become either the company or the individual inventor or group of inventors, that you are able to protect your invention through the various means that are available to you. And those means are, and what I'm going to talk about just really briefly, is to go through what we mean by intellectual property. And I know I've heard a lot of you introduce yourself at the beginning of the session, and a lot of you have, have a bunch of inventions and I assume patents under your belt, and a lot of you are at the early stages. So forgive me if any of this is not new to you, but I just want to go through it quickly. Formally, we have patents which are registered at the U.S. Patent and Trade Office in the United States and in their various governmental patent offices around the world. We also have the idea of trademarks, where you can trademark a logo or an idea or a phrase, and copyright, which is a more complicated on its face, but actually more simple to use as a protection instrument. And then finally here we have trade secrets, which I'll talk a little bit about. I won't go into the meat of this totally, but if you look at the across the top, the first two are a utility patent and a design patent. And one is, the utility patent is typically a machine that manufactures or builds something or is a jig for doing something else, whereas a design patent can be a product, an article that is for sale. Trade secrets are things that there are very famous examples of people or companies that have never taken patents or trademarks out because they protect very, very closely the trade secret that differentiates them from their competitors. Copyrights are art generally, whether that be music, three-dimensional art, two-dimensional art, etc. And trademarks are typically those that tie a product or service to the manufacturer or to the creator of that particular product. So let's look at a quick look at patents. Obviously, a patent is the right to exclude others from making the same thing that you've invented. A patent typically lasts for 20 years or 15 years in the event of a design patent. And it gives you as the inventor the ability to protect whatever it is you've invented from being stolen within the United States. And it's important to remember that, within the United States. But it does mean that you have to apply for a patent to the USPTO. There are certain things such as provisional patents, which will give you protection for 12 months from the application point, at which time you should then apply for a full patent. And they are, as I say, limited term. They last for 20 years typically, or 15 years as a design patent. And as I also mentioned, they only apply in the United States. There is no such thing as a worldwide patent. If you have a product that is successful and you wanted to take it to a world market, you would have to, if you wanted to protect your invention, you would have to apply for patents in the various countries in which you wanted to operate. There is no such thing as a worldwide patent. Trademarks actually come from a longer history of common law. They are protected from the use of the TM symbol. They typically are done through the United States Patent and Trademark Office. but there are also some state registration instruments that you can take advantage of. And their purpose is to protect against confusion as to the source of the goods and services. And this has a particular resonance within the Native American community, particularly amongst the arts and crafts creators, in that it typically protects a product from confusing a consumer as to who actually made it, where it comes from, etc., etc. In a general sense, a trademark would be something like the Apple trademark, which would give you an assurance that it was created by a company that you know and sometimes trust. The registered trademarks gives you the right to enforce your trademark if somebody else starts to use your trademark or use something that is similar to your trademark, and to bring action in the court. Now, this is a trademark as well as patents are self-regulated and self-actionable. So you're not going to get the cops knocking on your door because you're violating somebody else's trademark. It gives you the use of the federal symbol of the R symbol. And a lot of people use the R symbol. It's available on your keyboard. But in law, you're only allowed to use the registered trademark if you actually have a trademark pending with the USPTO in this country. You can use the TM symbol, which indicates that you are wanting to trademark and create a trademark for whatever it is you've got. But the actual registered symbol is the R symbol. So that's important to look at sometimes, if whether you're in commerce or as a consumer or as an inventor. The TM and the R are different things. It gives you the right to record the mark with customs. So customs will actually do some monitoring of goods that come in from outside the US. It also serves whether you got your original trademark in the US or you may have got it in the UK or in India or China. Having that trademark gives you a certain cachet in terms of applying for trademarks in other filings. And then your trademark is also published in the database. Copyright, which I said can be quite confusing. It protects original works of authorship, which include literature, drama, music, etc., etc. And the last 4 words there, or 5 words, that are fixed in a tangible medium. So that means that they are recorded, they're drawn, they're written, they're typed on a computer and printed out, etc. So they are things that have a tangibility to them that doesn't necessarily preclude you from using somebody else's copyrighted work as long as you have brought something new to it. I'll talk a little bit about that. It doesn't protect facts. You can't protect facts. You can't protect ideas, things that are intangible. You can't protect systems or methods of operation, although it may, this idea, well, it may protect the way things are expressed. And I'll give you an example of that. I've spoken at a couple of workshops with the Tribal Geographical Information Systems folks, and these are typically based at universities and higher education places where they have specific courses or they're doing specific research on geographical information systems, land management, topographical research, etc. And there has been some concern about the satellites that are mapping our country and mapping the world, and whether they give away certain things which to a Native American community might be something that they do not want to be visible, whether it be sacred lands or whether it be something that they want to protect from a traditional point of view. And though the question was to us was that, well, if Google is, or satellites or the government or everybody is taking pictures of things that we don't want to have pictures taken of, what rights do we have to protect them? And typically the answer is you don't have that many rights to satellite photographs, for instance. But if you record the satellite photographs yourself and you create a database of coordinates or latitudes and longitudes and create a spreadsheet or a database or something, you have created a copyrightable work. So that gives you some element of protection of that copyrighted work being then distributed broadly. So that's, as I say, it's a complicated thing, although it's fairly simple to buy or to obtain a copyright. Now, similar to the R symbol, the copyright symbol is something that we can place on, as inventors or creators, we can place on works that we create in this copyright realm. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it's been registered with the US Copyright Office. And there's a difference between the Patent and Trademark Office and the Copyright Office. Having said that, copyrighting something is very simple. And it's $20 to $30 to copyright a piece of artwork or a print or a song or even your rendition of My Way by Frank Sinatra. If you sing it yourself in your way, you can copyright your performance if it's tangibly recorded or written down or in any other way put into a tangible medium. And a lot of people ask me, well, what about the old methods of, you mail yourself something? Well, typically, yes, you can. You can create copyright by mailing a copy of whatever it is you want to copyright to yourself and keeping it in an unsealed envelope or whatever. But it's only really the beginning. It establishes a line in the sand. It's something that if you were in a dispute in the legal sense, you'd be able to say, here is this piece of registered mail that I mailed to myself in 1986 because I thought I was going to be a rock star, and here's the words to the song which somebody stole. It's the basis for subsequent legal action, but it's not as solid as actually writing and applying for a copyright at the US Copyright Office. But it does what we call their latches, that they latch on to a point in time. So I just wanted to give you a couple of brief examples of intellectual property in the world, as I've called it. And this is my cell phone. And this is, of course, made by Apple. I don't know if anybody's ever been to the US Patent and Trademark Office, but Steve Jobs had, for a long time in the big atrium there, a list of all of the patents, trademarks, and copyrights that Steve Jobs and Apple had patented over the years, and it was thousands. But just for an example of the iPhone, obviously we have the trademark, which is made by Apple with the logo. The product name itself, the iPhone, is trademarked. And the software name, iOS, and Safari, for instance, are all trademarked. Inside the phone, or as components of the phone, Apple also has patents on the way that it writes its semiconductor services. It has patents on its touchscreen. It has patents on the battery power control. You can see all of those things. And if anybody's been watching this as we do, you'll know that Samsung and Apple had a long, long, long battle between who invented the swipe, who invented the notion of swiping left or right, and was it protectable? And in the end, Apple, they settled, but it was Samsung actually got the better of Apple to a certain extent. Apple sued Samsung. There are also copyrights within the phone. The software itself can be copyrighted, the instruction manual, for instance, ringtones. And there's that thing that I mentioned earlier, which is trade secrets. There are things within the phone which are not necessarily detectable by outside would-be competitors or would-be forgers, but that Apple knows and does not want to copyright, patent, or trademark because all of those things have a shelf life, and they never want those to be protected. And then there are other forms of design. Going back to trade secrets, one thing that is a very well-known thing is Coca-Cola. And Coca-Cola, just that one simple bottle is the subject of many, many different legal protections. There is a utility patent pending in the tamper-resistant cap design there, the red cap, that is patented to the Coca-Cola company. There is a trademark, obviously, in the logo design and the elements there all over the bottle. There's copyright itself on the way that Coca-Cola talks about we want to, teach the world to sing. You can tell how old I am, or whatever it might be that they write on the label. There was actually a trade dress and design patent that covers the bottle shape so that nobody else, until that patent runs out, can make a bottle that looks just like the Coca-Cola bottle. And then finally, the formula itself. Nobody knows really what the formula of the Coca-Cola syrup is, and that is the thing that is kept secret, is not, if Coca-Cola had patented that back in the 1920s or 30s, by the 1940s or 50s, everybody would be making Coca-Cola to the same formula. So they took the decision not to patent that, but to keep it as a trade secret. I live in Atlanta, as I said before, and Atlanta is the headquarters of Coca-Cola, and it's sort of a little urban legend here that there are 3 or 4 people that at any one time who have access to the trade secret of the Coca-Cola formula, but whether that's true or not. But it's an example of how companies often choose not to go for legal instruments, but choose to actually keep their secret to themselves under the guise of a trade secret. So, how do you protect your work? For instance, in a copyright, copyright is created the minute you create the work. If you're an author, or if you're a poet, or if you're a songwriter, or if you're an artist, as soon as that work is created, you have protection of it. Do you have to be registered? No, it's absolutely voluntary, but it exists because you may wish to bring in a lawsuit for infringement at a later time. Why should I register my work if it's automatic copyright? Because it's on public record. It presents a line in the sand. It may be eligible for statutory damages, etc. And if it occurs within 5 years of the first publication, it's considered evidence in law. And poor man's copyright, as I mentioned, is sending yourself something in the mail. There's no actual provision in law, but it does give you some element of protection. Just quickly, again, what is not protected by copyrights? Ideas. You can't think of an idea. You can't copyright a word unless you've invented it as the word, and even then you might have trouble with the Copyright Office. You can't copyright things that are commonly known, and you can't copyright things that are in the moment. So you can't copyright in this, for our purposes within the Native American community, you can't copyright a dance, for instance, but you can copyright a video of the dance being performed. And you can copyright, if somebody takes the time to write down the choreography, you can copyright that. Fees for patents and trademarks are fairly simple. As I say, it's $35 for a single application. If you wanted to do a standard application, which is more than one author with more than one piece of work. So, for instance, a library of work or an opus of work. Trademarks, again, can be between $275 and $325, depending on the class, whether it's a logo, whether it's a phrase, etc., etc. You can do it online for as little as $275. You send it in on paper for $375. Patents are a little bit different. Patents start at $135 for a provisional patent. And then one of the most important things in patents is that a patent will last for 20 years as long as you keep paying what are called maintenance fees on the patent. So for a trademark, within 5 or 6 years, you have to tell the trademark office that you're still using the trademark to review it. But with a patent, there are yearly fees that you pay, which are fairly non-onerous. They're less than $100. But if you do not pay your patent fee, the patent will lapse and will become what they call vacated, which means that anybody, you having basically published your patent on how you make your product, if you let that product lapse before the 20 years by not paying maintenance fees, then that product and the way it's made becomes available to anybody else who wants to make it. Just real quickly, for the Native American community, the Indian Arts and Crafts Act was created in the 50s, late 50s, and has been amended a couple of times. It's basically a Truth in Advertising Act that says that you can't misrepresent that you are a native artist or a federally member of a federally registered tribe and creating this work that is traditionally Native American unless you actually are that, and you can't make work. You are violating the Indian Arts and Crafts Act if you make work, and everybody knows the dream catchers and everything else that come from China are violating federal law. As I mentioned earlier, it is also on the onus of the creator to take action against those people who are violating their trademark or copyright or artistic work. But it does protect, and there have been recently, which is good news for those people who are creators and native artists, there have been more and more prosecutions by the Department of Trade and the U.S. Department of Trade, the U.S. Department of Commerce and the US Customs and Immigration as well on violators trying to bring non-native works in to be sold as native works in this country. And we were also involved, I don't know if any of you know the story of the Urban Outfitters who were selling a whole range of products underneath the title of Navajo. So they had a generic type of Indian design and they slapped it on backpacks and women's panties and hip flasks and all sorts of things and sold them both in their stores and online as Navajo backpack and Navajo panties. Well, the Navajo Nation didn't take very kindly to that, and the Navajo Nation actually hold, I think it's over 30 trademarks in those different categories for the word Navajo, both in apparel and in accessories, etc., etc. They were very wise and had a lot of forethought decades ago to take those trademarks out. And so they sued Urban Outfitters in federal court in Albuquerque, and the case took almost 3 years and eventually was settled for an undisclosed settlement, and Urban Outfitters stopped selling those products. So the Indian Arts and Crafts Act can be quite a powerful instrument as well, particularly for creative work. I won't go into how much. And I'll just finally, and I'll take some questions. Looking at how the following would be protected. Normally if I'm in front of you now, I'll pick on people, but a mobile app software, for instance, which is something that is not only relevant to this presentation, but relevant to me because I am a mobile app developer, is protected potentially by copyright. A piece of sculpture, similarly, is protected by copyright. A logo is typically presented by a trademark or the registered trademark if you've actually taken the time to register that with the USPTO. A new organic energy drink, for instance, would be a trade secret. That would probably be the best way to protect if you were, we have a tribe we're working with that is looking to develop and commercialize a drink that they have been making for generations, that they take on long trips, that is full of nutrients and et cetera, and they want to bring that to the world, and we're currently looking at what is the best way to do that. Is the best way to do that to license that formula and keep the formula a secret? Is it to get a patent, which means in 20 years it'll be expired? So we're looking at those different things. And then finally, your musical cover version of Starboy would actually be covered under a copyright. So that's a really brief, I know that we're trying to get all the presentations in. I'd love to take any questions if you, I know there's varying degrees of knowledge, I'm assuming, between the inventors among us who are veteran inventors and those who are just looking to protect their invention. So I'd be happy to take any, oh, there's one more. The VR headset would obviously be protected by a patent. So I'm happy to take any questions that you might have.
We like to serve clients that can't get a bank loan sometimes. And sometimes that'll be people with blemished credit histories, people that don't have a lot of business acumen. So we really try to get clients going so that eventually in time as their business grows and as they build their credit or rebuild their credit, they can go to a bank and get a low interest rate loan, a business bank loan. Because the fact of the matter is a lot of banks do not fund startups. It's really a challenge. They'll want to see 3 years financials, they'll want to see profit and loss. They want to make sure that the business they're funding is profitable. All right, so our goals are to provide access to capital, support clients in achieving economic security, empower entrepreneurs to grow their economies, and encourage them to be agents of change. So a lot of the times when I talk to clients, it's primarily focused on the capital piece, but sometimes clients will have questions like, how do I talk to someone about a patent? Or do you know of any funding or grant opportunities? Do you know anyone in my local area that could be a resource or a mentor for me? So I really try to stay knowledgeable about that within their local area so I can direct them to the right people. Usually it's just a warm introduction. So we're lending partners, and that's exactly what I said we do. Not only do we provide small business loans and microloans, but we also try to connect our clients with the right resources. So the loans can be used to buy or upgrade equipment, hire people, buy inventory, secure commercial space, purchase supplies, remodel, promote or market your business. A lot of times when people call for a business loan, a lot of things can be treated as business, such as going to a training or traveling to get some education or to purchase inventory. So anything business related we can fund. Our rates vary. In the microfinance world, we're 8 to 22%. It depends on credit and it depends on the loan size. There's no prepayment, so we don't, if someone does really well in their startup of their business and they're profitable and they just want to pay off the loan, we're good with that too. Oops. One thing I do a lot of my work is financial literacy, so I always try to tell clients, don't ever get a payday loan. The interest rate is crazy. So we try to do a little bit of education in our outreach as well. Payday loans really put a lot of people in really challenging situations, and sometimes I can't fund people because their title's at a payday loan, or they're paying 500% on an interest rate loan that they'll never get out of. So I try to look for ways, working through credit unions, working through organizations to get those things paid off to help them build a healthy, I guess, to rebuild their credit report and get out of that kind of debt. Online loans, so a lot of people heard of Kickstarter. Lending Tree is another one. So they do a lot of funding online, and sometimes it can be really accessible and easy. But what I see with a lot of the clients that I fund is that when they get an online loan, their payments are so huge because it's a really quick payoff. So it actually disrupts their cash flow. So they're focused on making a $1,000 payment a month, and it's not helping with their business. So I always try to educate clients about online payday loans or online loans. Microloans is kind of where we fall into. Like I said, we started in Latin America at a very grassroots level, so we're replicating that model here in the U.S. Peer-to-peer loans, this is like crowdfunding, same like what I said earlier, like Kickstarter. We actually funded an organization called eMoney Pool, which is modeled after, it's called a tanda in the Hispanic community or in the Mexican community. It's like it's a pool where people pay into a pool and share money and resources. So we actually at the venture level of the national organization funded an online, and we've noticed that a lot of clients are using it to, one, increase their credit scores, but also get savings. So what I like to do is I like to show a lot of examples of clients we funded. This is David Sayers. He is from Gallup. He works for Sky Turtle Creative, and our loan was used primarily just to get some equipment and computer and camera equipment for his advertising business. So that's one example. Another one is Shirley Pino. She's from Santa Ana Pueblo. She does traditional Pueblo designs and contemporary design work with clothing. We helped her with a studio space. And Warren Montoya, he does an art space. So we do a lot of different things for the Native community, which I primarily serve. But Acción is not just focused on the Native community. I want to be completely clear about that. We work in a 5-state region, which covers Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, Texas, and Nevada. And we're also part of a larger national network. But what happens is a lot of people come to us because they have blemished credit histories or they can't access bank credit. So that's where we kind of get people started. So what do we take into consideration? The 5 C's of credit mainly. For a lot of loan officers, we're definitely advocates. We really try to advocate for the client because we feel kind of like Robin Hood. We get our funding from grant funds, we get our funding from private donations, from foundations, and we're also 70% sustainable through our interest fees and our closing fees. So we really want to get that money out there, and we're trying to advocate for clients. So a lot of it is talking about the story. What is the business about? What is it going to do? How are they going to help grow their local economy? How is this going to help them become more self-sufficient? So we really try to address those things in the character component. Capacity, we really try to look at, can this client afford the loan? Because we don't want to put clients in a situation to where we give them $50,000 and they can't afford the monthly loan payment and they're in debt and they default. So we want to make sure that they're successful by making sure that the loan repayment is affordable and within their means. Collateral is another piece. We do take collateral depending on the credit report. We have an indicator that allows us to see if collateral is necessary or not. And then capital. For loans over $50,000, we usually like to see a 10% equity injection. And conditions, we also look at market conditions at a very low level. We've been seeing a lot in New Mexico transportation loans, really startup. So it's just really dependent on the market. So we try to get the full picture of the entrepreneur, and we really try to communicate that to the underwriter as far as why we should lend this entrepreneur money. And this is kind of what I went over, the character piece, but also a personal credit report. We look at that. That's not the primary piece. It's one of the first things we look at, but it's not the primary justification. We also think about what kind of experience does this client have? Is this client innovative? Is this client trying to create a product that's going to do a social good, or are they you know, we really try to focus in on those personal stories, and then look at how the business has evolved. So say, for example, we have innovators like yourselves who have gone through the FAST program, and you know, you've worked on a commercialization plan, and you're getting things going. That really speaks volumes because it shows the client is resourceful, is really educating themselves about their business and how they're going to develop it. And then use of funds. We wanted to see, you know, what are the funds going to be used for? Is it to apply for a patent, to get a business license? Is it to go to training? Is it to travel? Is it for inventory? So we like to just, in our write-up, make sure we have that. And this is going back to the capacity. We're looking at the ability to repay, essentially, and then monthly financials. A lot of my work is really trying to talk to clients about, like, what can you handle? You know, based on all of your expenses and what your business demands, is this possible? So sometimes that really sheds light on what, it really helps redirect clients, because they're like, okay, well, maybe a $500 loan payment is not for me, so maybe a $20,000 loan isn't the way to go right now. Maybe I could seek a grant first. So we try to just kind of get that out in the open. Collateral, like I said, is something we take into consideration if the client is able to do so. We also use business equipment that is to be purchased. So say we have a restaurant or someone who's invented something and they have 10,000 widgets, we can use that as collateral as well, because it just shows skin in the game. Like I said, conditions. So usually to get people started, we have a small loan under $12,000. It doesn't usually require collateral. It's a very quick process. You can underwrite within 24 hours. It really is an ID and proof of residence and the ability to show repayment. For loans over $4,000, you do want to see a business license, and then over $8,000, you just have to verify that there's enough income. So this is our Presto loan, and it's really easy to underwrite. I think a lot of people get scared about going to a lender because they're like, oh, they're going to look at my credit report, they're going to judge me, and for us, really, it's like, I really want to help you get the money so you can start your business. It's not a personal judgment. It's really about trying to empower entrepreneurs. Process is fairly simple. You apply online. We do a loan prep, so to support the loan, depending on the size of the loan, then we would request documents. So for existing business, if it's a high dollar amount, we'll want to see profit and loss, your balance sheet. You know, for businesses who are starting up, we'll want to see personal tax returns or your most recent bank statements, just to verify cash flow. And then the loan disbursement is usually just the wire transfer. So it's a really fast process. I think that, speaking in regards to the amount of dollars we've lent and in the time that we've been here, it shows that we're really just trying to get capital out. A lot of what we do is not so much geared towards technical assistance or business development. We try to connect entrepreneurs with those other resources, such as this space or SBDC, incubators. We really try to connect them with the right resources so that they can be successful. On our end, it's primarily funding. So that's what I do. And this is primarily tailored to a Native audience, so I really try to look for other resources for within the community, but I always try to make sure to tailor it within the community. Let's see here, it's one of the loans I closed. So thank you. I do want to say that I also work under a Kellogg grant, like Ben as well. And my focus is geared towards San Juan County, McKinley County, and Bernalillo County. So I've done a bunch of loans here in Farmington, actually, both with Native and non-Native people. And really, I'm here to be a support. I'm here to, if you guys have any questions, feel free to give me a call. It doesn't have to be a loan. It can just be like, hey, who can I go to help me with a business plan? You know, who's really low cost, or do you know anybody that you can connect me in a bank, because I think I'm ready to apply for a bank loan, or do you know anyone that does commercial real estate property? So I can be a resource in that way as well. And I'm really inspired actually by this program. I was like, man, I need to invent something cool. But I think for entrepreneurs, it's always a very it's challenging. I watch entrepreneurs go from the beginning stages. I see them, they'll come to me sometimes in the middle stages of things, whether it's a startup or they've already started their service or started to develop their product. And it is hard, it's challenging. I feel for you guys. I always say, I want to be an entrepreneur at some point, but I'm like, okay, wait, I already seen how stressful it can be. So for myself and for Axiom, we really try to make it easy for people to get capital so that they can continue to realize their goals.
Well, and I think Jamie highlighted on something, that's actually really important is, if nothing else, always feel free to contact any of us if you have a question, if you need some help. We may not be able to give you the exact help, but because we have such large partnership, organization relationships, because we know so many community community development, and so many community-driven organizations, one of us will probably be able to put you in touch with the right resource. Mm-hmm. Or, if I need to be, I can call Jamie and say, we have this inventor up in Farmington. They really need help in this area A. I only know people in area B. Can you give them assistance? She may be able to say immediately, yeah, I know somebody. Or, well, I don't personally know somebody, but I have somebody that might know somebody. So rely on those connections. That's one of the biggest things you can always build at any of these events is not only the connections between yourselves, but the connections with the people that are up here, talking and boring you to death as we sit here and speak, are the people that we represent, or the other organizations we work with. Use those networks. That's the best thing you can ever have. People always like to go to events like these and say, well, I don't want to go to a networking hour. That networking event sounds so lame. I'll just go have a beer at the bar down the road. But you miss being able to introduce yourselves to those people that were at that event. So if nothing else, building networks and building a communication database is a key thing that you can get out of any of these.
Yeah. When I was sitting there listening to the FAST program stuff, I was like, oh my gosh, I know like 3 people that are funded that could probably go through this program because they develop products. And they were at the very early stages of starting, so I'm going to send them your way.
Great.
Yeah.
Dan, I'll definitely hand out my card to everybody, but our website for the FAST, again, arrowheadcenter.nmsu.edu/nmfast. That'll be in the presentation I send out to everybody. And if you have a question for any of us, Jamie as well, I'm going to throw her on the spot, and I can send her information out to everybody as well. So if you have any questions on lending, funding, anything along those lines. I can send her information out, and I don't mean to throw her under the bus,
No,
but
that's
if she
totally
can answer any question, she might be willing to.
And we loan, I forgot to mention this, 1,000 to $1 million. That's, in the business world, that's the low end. So, you know, but we're definitely about trying to get people started and try to get people going.
How often do you loan $1 million?
Very rarely. I think the highest to date is like 750 right now at this point for this year. But for New Mexico, for our region this month, we're on track to loan 3.5 million. So we're really trying to put dollars out there. And if you know anybody who's starting up or in the beginning phases and needs a little bit of capital just to get things going, send them our way.
And try to capture your own piece of it.
Yeah, right.
You just get them right there.
Okay, thanks so much. You guys have any other questions? No? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jane.
Sure.
Thank you. And now, Cliff is going to talk briefly about the cluster.
We have a facility in Alamogordo, New Mexico. We have about 45 acres and 86,000 square feet. A lot of it's a fixer-upper. Buildings are fairly dated, so we're gradually renovating those as opportunities and companies are available that want to use that space. The whole goal is to grow a collaborative campus, ones where companies can thrive, but they can also work together as well. Everyone knows we live in a systems world now, and it's a piece here, a piece there. And so our whole goal is to set up that collaboration where companies can work together to take a concept to market. And then us being able to supply technical support to them as well. When we started the program with SBA, and I think Dale mentioned it earlier this morning, we didn't want to duplicate resources that were already in the community. We had the financial leadership, we had the SBDCs, we had the community colleges that were supporting business development from a financial and business infrastructure. But we saw an opportunity and really a void to support the technical side and work with the other providers as well to take a holistic approach to support companies. And that's really our focus is on the engineering side. We have software, mechanical, electrical engineers that can work with companies, and maybe if they have a technical area that they may need some expertise in, we can hopefully help satisfy that need for them. So that's really the cornerstone of our goal in supporting the small business community, working with the business community and providing the engineering support that a small business may need.
Cliff,
Yes.
how do I explain to them why it's called the Old Monkey Farm?
Okay.
I need a little clarification.
Okay. This actually used to be an animal research area. Chimpanzee research, a variety of other animals as well. When we moved to Alamogordo from San Diego, and we used to get up to community events and describe where we were, and people would have a lost look in their eyes. They didn't really know where it was. And then they would say, oh, that's the Old Monkey Farm. So all the local residents, they call it the Old Monkey Farm. I don't know how
So that is literal.
fit in there, but,
So where is the new monkey farm?
They're in Florida, living on an island, in little peaceful islands in the middle of a large lake. They were rescued.
Yeah, didn't they quit using monkeys for research and
Yes, they have.
space flights and stuff?
There's a lot of that has gone on. It's stopped now. There's still a large contingent of them at Holloman Air Force Base in Alamogordo. And what actually they're doing now is they're not using them for test subjects anymore. They're actually tracking what happened, what was the impact of those tests early on in their whole life. So they still have several hundred chimpanzees still
They're still healthy.
on Holloman Air Force Base. But fortunately, they're no longer subject to testing. It's more just to track their health history.
But Jane Goodall with Save the Chimps organization, she came in her organization and rescued them, nursed them all back to health again to where they were healthy enough to travel, and transported them all to Florida to this large compound there. We get updates and pictures daily. When it's one of them's birthday or one of them's passed away or something. So we stay in touch.
So it's an excellent facility for us. Again, we have plenty of space to grow, and Save the Chimps Foundation is still a property owner, and they've given us a very good price if we want to exercise an option purchase one day. And so they really like to see the facility go to public good in the community and support economic development. So they've been very good. Now I'll tell you, we pay $3,000 a month for 47 acres and 86,000 square feet. So
And that just went up July 1st.
yeah, we were paying
2,500.
so it's we couldn't make it without their support.
But I used to threaten the high school
It is
kids
cheap.
last year, they were taking a lot of the cages.
Sure.
Because there's still a lot of cages out there. Taking a lot of them down, but there's still some out there. So I threatened to lock them there.
So these are some of our partners we're working with. Certainly our relationship with Navajo Technical University has been outstanding for us as well. Working with Ben Jones and the Karma program and their work they're doing with advanced manufacturing. It's phenomenal. And we see that as a resource for our small businesses to utilize as well. I want to introduce, I'm sorry, ma'am.
No, I was just going to ask real quick. Ben, I have an inventor that just needs to have a little case made for glasses. Can you guys do that over there? I'll explain the invention. She was going to be here. I think Denise put out the wrong date. I bet she shows up tomorrow. You guys are going to be gone. But,
Was that the email that I saw an email about clarifying the date?
Yeah, Denise sent out the wrong date. So
Was that different?
Yeah, that was not a her, that was a him.
Oh, okay. I was sorry, Cody was on that.
That was Cody.
anyway, whatever, the wrong date went out somewhere. But she has an invention, and it's just, she's got a patent on it, she's never had a prototype. And so it's glasses, just this part of the glass, not the frames. And this part of the glass is on a rivet. And she's never had, like I said, she's never had a prototype. She's just got the drawings and paid big bucks for the patent and pays to protect the patent. And so this swings out on a rivet out of the case. And so then you take a real quick look at your menu or whatever you're needing to take a really fast look at, then the glasses swing right back into the case, and they're on a keychain, or they never leave the case is the thing. Could you guys do a case for her? Even if you 3D printed it?
Put me on the spot, but you could do a prototype, like a student project.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so,
I'd have to consult my technical advice.
okay, well, the technical advisor's here right now. It's Betty Ann, Cliff.
Oh, Betty Ann.
And we have to contact Scott.
Yeah.
Bring Scott in on it, because he runs the 3D lab.
So you can do that for her? So I will be sending her your.
Maybe.
I think his units could handle prototype. And one of the things you have to do with 3D manufacturing is look at throughput, how many units you can build for prototyping. I think it's certainly.
Okay, I'll send her your direction.
Okay.
Since you consulted.
Oh, okay.
We might send it to the monkey one.
Well, whatever, she needs a prototype. She's had that darn patent for 9 years, and she doesn't even have a prototype very now.
Okay.
And so I want to introduce Sandoval Begay, who introduced himself earlier this morning too. Sandoval recently in May graduated from NTU, and he interned with us this summer. And I think we look forward to continuing our relationship with Sandoval as he wants to start his own business and on the Navajo Nation, and we look forward to supporting that. But he has tremendous technical talents, and I think his goals for robotics and remote sensing are just outstanding. So, but we just wanted to thank him for spending his time with us this summer. Yes, ma'am.
You forgot to tell them how much your rent is for a business at your place for the first 3 years.
We do offer essentially zero cost to rent, with excepting utilities and those aspects of it. But, we want the businesses to grow, and there's kind of there's a hidden goal there too, because with local economic development act funding that's available to the state, that money, they will contribute money to go in to renovate the building. So our goal is to see a science and technology campus at some point in Alamogordo. So you take a little bit here, a little bit there, and you put it together, you got something. And that's really what we've seen going on up here in the Northwest as well. It's everybody bringing a little bit of an ingredient to the overall product and making something very successful. But that's the way we do it. Operational costs are so hard for a startup business. I mean, we're one too. I mean, we're living it as well. And anything we can do to help nurture a business grow and become an asset in the community is just very important to us as well. Again, the small business outreach, such as events today, and then internship opportunities, much like Sandoval with us. We have interns from New Mexico Tech and Mexico State University as well. So we've had some very good students. And the whole goal is to get them to stay in the state. That's one of our biggest challenges. They see the big lights, bright lights of another city, and want to get out of the rural areas. So again, if you create these opportunities in rural areas, then maybe the kids will stay home and grow their own work or grow their own business in those areas. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. This was our original span of our cluster. We broke it up by the planning districts of the state, and this is actually the planning district in southeastern New Mexico. So that was that's one reason we brought those 5 counties together originally. And again, the SBA has been very relaxed in the enforcement of that. They see impact happening, and that's really what they want, impact for small business. And they've allowed us to step outside those boundaries and broaden our technology base as well. It's not just autonomous and unmanned systems, it's component technologies. We just want to nurture innovation within the state. SBDCs and other SBA service providers are really essential to us. Again, we don't want to, they have a tremendous expertise in the financial side and the business development side. When we put our proposal in the SBA, we said we don't want to duplicate that. We just want to partner with and bring that aspect along with the technical aspects to support a company. And that's a holistic approach that we're trying to really take. The mentoring, tech transfer, again, commercialization of the existing R&D. That is we've talked a little bit about it today, but that is a tremendous asset to small businesses. The federal labs have an IP portfolio, and they're under mandate from Congress to get that IP portfolio out into the communities, especially small business communities. So if you haven't looked at that, if you have an idea that you say, well, why can I leverage something that's already been done? I encourage you to look at the NASA's, Department of Defense, NIH, all the federal agencies that have an R&D portfolio. A lot of times you can find starting technology that you can then modify and commercialize it to support your idea. So if you need,
I was going to say, kind of along those same lines, we want to quickly mention the small major project.
Yes. I'm sorry, sir.
I didn't hear what he said.
Okay. There's a new program that the SBA has out. They've had what's called the Mentor Protege program for many years, but it has only been restricted to the 8A program. You had to be a minority enterprise and go through a special process to get certified as what they call the 8A. And then that would team a small business with a larger business to help nurture the small business, the protege, and to grow their business, both, again, in their business infrastructure and maybe technical as well. The hook that the SBA put into the program is that large business and the small business could team together and retain the small business privileges when they were bidding on a government contract. So that was kind of the sweetener that the SBA put in there for the large businesses to want to do the program. So you can work with, if you were in the energy side looking at that, maybe an oil company that would like to sponsor you as a mentor and a protege can team together with you to help nurture your.
And through you, you would be able to contact or steer me in that direction of who I might talk to?
Yes, sir, we sure can. It's an excellent program.
He did it for, 15 years in the Navy with the Department of Defense, and then the protege program.
And then so how would I get started into these people helping me find those?
We can support that outreach for you, and we'll take an action to make sure we get that information. We'll actually get the requirements to you for the Mentor Protege program. It was just enacted last year, the final SBA policy rules to open it up to all small businesses. So it's a great program. And before I retired from the government, as Debbie mentioned, I had it for robotics at the Department of Defense. And so we had a little different program. We could actually put some money into the mentor as well. The Small Business Administration one that they do not fund the mentor. It has to all come from mentor resources. But the ability to team together to go after a small contract and have small business privileges is really that sweetener for the mentor to want to support the program. Yes,
just a real quick question. You said look at the NIH R&D portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
So the school that I'm trained in, the National International Board of Hypnotherapy Academy of America, has an NIH study out for overactive bladder through the NIH,
mm-hmm.
and it's one of the only hypnotherapy protocols that's been accepted through a pilot program for that kind of research. So if I were to want to look for like what type of topics they're wanting to do research on, that's where I would go to see if I would qualify to be one of the hypnotherapists for that protocol?
This database is actually research that's already been completed.
Okay.
And is available for licensing out of the lab.
Okay.
There's an organization called the Federal Laboratory Consortium, FLC, and all the federal labs put their available technologies into that database. So if you're looking for something in hypnotherapy, you can put that keyword in. It'll tell you who's doing research in that, who has potential intellectual property that you may be able to license and use in your practice.
Awesome, thank you.
I think it's flc.org, I believe, but it's Federal Labs Consortium.
While you're on that, you should mention that, like NASA startup.
Yeah. As a small business, we just license some technology from NASA. And NASA has what's called the startup license. And essentially, you can license the technology for 3 years at no cost. Gives you a chance to evaluate it, make your market for it. But if you don't make the market, if it doesn't work out, then you're off the hook. At the end of 3 years, you have to start, paying royalties for use of it. But NASA's made it very friendly to take their portfolio and evaluate it before you actually have to commit long-term to a license agreement. NASA's the only one I know that's doing that currently. But it's not to say that there might be some others that are doing it now, but NASA's been on the leading edge of trying to get their technology portfolio out into the public domain. They get graded on it. It's a metric for them that they have to report to Congress. So they have an incentive to really work with you. It varies by command, I'll tell you that. We work with an East Coast NASA location. They're very aggressive and support you very quickly. We have another one on the West Coast that it's a little more protracted. So you have to, persistence is really the key word in anything. Yes, sir.
You were just talking about the NASA. If you came up with an idea that we could probably use, you didn't want to, just to forward it to them, they could research it. Is that?
There is a possibility. There's some agreements that are out there called cooperative research and development agreements. And it's a way for you as a business to partner with a federal agency who may have an interest in that technology and then you can, it's like a contract that says, we'll evaluate this, you come in and support them. They may bring, again, some resources to the table, like special testing, give you some reports back to really, for you to understand, you know, your product or the scope of your product. And they may even invest some money into it as well to take it to the next level, that there's some more work that needs to be done. So it's called a Cooperative Research and Development Agreement, called a CRADA. Now NASA calls theirs a little bit different. It's called Space Act Agreement for NASA, but it's the same thing as what's called a CRADA. Space Act Agreement.
Space Act.
Yeah.
Thanks, sir.
Yeah, and again, if they put effort into it with you, then that part of the IP that's created, you both have title to that segment of the IP. Your base IP is protected, but you know, anything that's created in kind of a joint effort, you have to share in that IP. They may turn around and license it right back to you, royalty free, but there are some clauses in the agreement that says anything joint development, they also have share title to that IP.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we've covered most of this today. Certainly we've had some really great presenters today from the lending side and the grants and process, and from the contracting side. I think, you know, from the SBIR program, again, I want to really encourage you to take a hard look at the SBIR program and the topics. You'll see those vary from agency to agency. The DOD, Department of Defense, has gotten very specific. As Dell showed, they had $1 billion budget. So the program managers have said, if I've got $1 billion, I'm going to start investing in a technology I need, not just a broad topic. And so if you look at the DOD SBIR topics, you'll see some very specific. I'm looking at a new antenna for the Gerald Ford class of aircraft carriers. You'll see it that finite, because they said, I might as well leverage this and then work it into my technology upgrade program for my platform. And that's the beauty of this program. As we talked about, phase one is a competitive award. So if your product is successful, that program manager can take you all the way through the process and award a non-competitive contract for the hardware to you to put it into the system. That's really the strength, is because we have a thing called competition and contracting that says we're supposed to compete most of our procurements unless we can make a sole source justification. Because that phase one was competitive, you met that legal requirement, and the program manager can fund you all the way through to transition to commercialization and insertion. So it's a very strong program. Get to know your program manager in that case.
Yeah, SBIR.gov is kind of your first stop shop. That's the SBA run SBIR. So we say there's 12 agencies that participate. 11 of them fund, the 12th agency is SBA because they actually manage the SBIR program. They put together the website. You can find all the topics, and as Cliff was just saying, some departments like NASA and DOD, they work more on a contract. They're extremely specific because they want to buy product. Whereas other departments like NSF's topic areas don't mean anything because they have a disclaimer on there that their topic areas are just overall guidance that really you don't have to follow the topic area. NSF wants to know everything going on in science and research aside from drug discovery. So if you have anything that crosses any threshold of science, NSF is probably interested in it, as long as you're not developing drugs. And medical drugs, not like...
Not
looking for a high efficiency meth lab.
Yeah. No new, no gain.
Yeah. But so take advantage of that. There is, especially with DOD, there's a pre-topic release, pre-release period where they put the topics out there, and you can actually call the TPOC or the technical point of contact and have a discussion. And then they have to close that window when it's actually formally released. But there's a period where you can have some very honest dialogue and discussion, and so it's an opportunity for that program manager to get to know you and get to actually know more about your technology
more than just that proposal you're about to submit. And you can probably pick up some good intel as well, because many times they'll verbalize what's really keeping them up at night. What do they really need this technology to do? So it's really good intel to take advantage of when you're putting a proposal together.
Most of the funding agencies will allow you to talk to one of the cognizant program managers. And a lot of them, especially DOD, they welcome you to talk to them, particularly NSF and USDA. USDA specifically states if you have any questions, call us. We will talk to anybody. And some of them you may not get, some of them may be a little bit cagey by email, and you may get a better answer by phone. That's just because emails have paper trails, whereas phones aren't. So just be cognizant of that. But a lot of them welcome you to be able to contact them and talk about your idea. And many of them will help you find a fit for your idea. Of course, when the civil window is open. Some of them only fund once a year, so you may be waiting 8 months before you talk to somebody.
But just to show you how underrepresented New Mexico is, the one they have in Phoenix is actually our New Mexico cluster. They didn't even know where New Mexico was on the map when they drew it. I like that.
Wait a minute. The one that's on Phoenix is supposed to be in New Mexico?
That's ours, yeah. When headquarters drew the map,
Suppose that they probably think you need a green card to get in your visa.
Well, it's like a bumper sticker I saw last week. New Mexico, we're not new and we're not Mexico.
So I won't go into a lot of the program specifics, but the bottom line is it's another resource that we want to make available to small businesses in New Mexico. And again, I can't applaud you enough what you're doing in northwest Mexico here. The communities are really coming together. You've got this grassroots effort, but you're also connecting communities as well. So I think, the helping each other, but then showing their strength and connecting communities. We're seeing, Pam helped get us sponsorship going down at Rio Rancho. So it's starting those grassroots efforts and making Mexico strong and the rural economy strong. So, with that, I think I used up my time, but if you have any questions, please, if any questions today, but if not, you got our contact information, and we certainly look forward to supporting you.